What's up, guys? Matt here with MTG Ownage. Today I'm going to be talking about my commander deck, Gilanra, Caller of Wirewood, and Slurrk, All-Ingesting. I sometimes refer to this deck as the Ooze Apocalypse because of its main themes and what it tries to do. It's kind of a green good stuff deck for simplified terms. Green good stuff. It has themes of +1/+1 counter shenanigans, and it also has themes of 6+ CMC, which is pretty interesting to build around, and card draw, flooding the board, and stability. Another big thing about this deck was to try to get it as consistent as possible, and it's been working pretty well. It's been really fun to play at the table, and yeah, I don't know what else to say. All right, let's go into the cards. I'm going to talk about the 99. I'll be sure to include a deck list somewhere in the description, so if you want to check that out. But I've done a little bit of preparation. There's also a devotion theme a little bit here, you'll see. So with those in mind, let's have a look at the cards. Basically, this has kind of evolved over time to just get stronger and stronger as I got more green good stuff. So that's what you're going to see. We got Triumph of the Hordes. If you're flooding the board, this card's great. Even if you're not really flooding, this card just ends games. Since we have big CMC and we flood the board kind of shenanigans, it is obviously a very strong card. Ren and 7, this guy's been really fun because he gets you a nice reach tree folk, if nothing else. And he has some land shenanigans and stuff to kind of go through your deck, which has often come in handy as well. So getting that big reach guy is really great for the stability of your deck and commander. You don't have flyers beating you down. I guess I should mention before I go too far that this is probably a power level 3 deck, or a rating 3 out of the 5. Whatever these systems are going on, I mean, it's somewhat optimized, but it's not really CDH. It's not going to win in a CDH game because it's just too slow. Acidic Slime, let's continue. Sorry for the interruption of, yeah, whatever. This is really good because it's an ooze. We kind of want an ooze. We have a bit of an ooze sub-theme in here as well, and that's intentional. It's really just for flavor and fun, not for any sort of meta. But this guy is good because he can blow up lands, enchantments, artifacts. He's kind of expensive. He doesn't fit the 6 CMC profile, but he's kind of stuck around because the death touch is often really nice too, just for sitting back. We don't have much, at least. You know, Slime, honestly, if you were looking to fully optimize this deck, there's probably a better card for that slot, but I'm keeping him in. He's beautiful too. All right, Lightning Greaves, pretty standard there. That's really, really good, especially in this deck where you have potential mana dorks that need haste to tap for a lot, as you'll see. Sylvan Anthem, I really like this. Obviously, you could go Sylvan Library, which is a more expensive card, but also this has 2 green pips, which is really nice for our devotion theme, and it's just a really powerful card. Buffing your green creatures and giving you a scry. It really makes a pretty big difference. Sandworm Convergence, I love this card. It's goofy. It makes you worm tokens every turn at the end of turn, and it makes it so flyers can't hit you. This deck has some reach, but not many flyers, so that can be effective. It's also 8 CMC, which is this flipping massive CMC, and it's funny. But it shouldn't be too much of a problem with this deck because we have things that tap for a lot of mana, as you'll see. We have the Tarrasque. The Tarrasque is just sweet. Yeah, 9 CMC, 10/10, and you do want to cast him in this deck. It shouldn't be too much of a problem, as you'll see. But if you cast him, he has haste, ward 10, which is funny. And his big thing is he's removal. When he swings, he fights something of your opponent's. So he's really good at just picking off things and beating down a player at the same time. And if you get that ward 10 on him, he's near invincible, and it's pretty cool. All right, we got Growing Rights of Itlimoc. This is just a really strong card. A lot of creatures for it to hit with the look at the top 4, and pretty common for us to have 4 creatures at the end of turn. So this is going to flip into basically a Gaia's Cradle. I'll show it on screen. Itlimoc, Cradle of the Sun. It's got a little homage to Gaia's Cradle. Just taps for green for each creature. I know I'm not explaining these a whole lot, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory. And you can pause and read, of course. I'm getting a good shot here. Biowaste Blob, it's part of the Ooze theme. As you can see, it buffs the oozes, and it makes oozes as long as you have a commander, which is not too hard to do, usually. Not exactly a strong card. The oozes are often the weakest cards in the deck because they're literally in there for the theme funniness and not for any sort of power or whatever. But although at times they do have power, they kind of give the deck a sense of it's going wide no matter how many times you board wipe it thing. So I like that about it. I think it's a fun little thing to mess around with. I love this card. It's really strong in here for the devotion. Oh my god, it's really strong in a mono green deck. Yeah, it's a lot of mana to add. Lotus mana for 3, and it's a 3/3 elf on top of that. Very strong. Vorinclex, pretty pricey card, but he's very strong for this deck since it has a bit of a theme of counters, and it boosts your counters. It also is a stacks piece against your opponents, shutting down their counters, which is pretty annoying. And the 6/6 Trample Haste is nice, 6 mana, so we can draw a card off our commander. Anything 6 CMC or higher, we can get that draw trigger, which we just love to get at least once a turn if possible. It's a beautiful thing. Paradox Zone. This is another part of the go wide no matter what theme. I wish it made oozes, but instead it makes fractals, and they keep doubling and popping in at the end of turn. So enters with a counter, end step, double the counters, put a fractal that size on the field. If you have Vorinclex, it's even more counters. It just, this card kind of goes crazy unless it gets removed. And it's one of those things you play as soon as possible. I wish it were 6 CMC in a way, but if it were 6 CMC, it might not even be playable. It's pretty steep at 5. But a very nice setup piece for just good stability. Alright, we got the Finhorn Elves. That's a no-brainer. Summoning Trap. I've been loving this card lately. It often hits something really spicy. And you can instant speed a creature into play at the end of turn, if nothing else, for 6 mana. So it fits that. I think it's a great fit into this deck. Love the Summoning Trap. And it can just be free, so that's amazing. Alright, we got Zopendrel, Hunger Dominus. This card is just ridiculous, to be honest. It's a 4/6 reach. Beginning of each combat, you double all your creatures' power and toughness. And you can pay 4 life, sack 2 other creatures, and make this indestructible basically forever. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's kind of one of those cards, if it hits the field, it's somewhat GG. Especially in just combination with any of the other things in the deck. So we have a lot of those really strong cards, and often these are like $20, $30 cards, and I get that. But with this deck, until you get it tuned up, you could just throw in random big tramplers and fun other creatures. You know, whatever you got that's not too pricey, but still really good. It kind of works in this sort of deck. That's the great thing about it. But I really like these powerhouses that make it feel like the true good stuff. Anywhere else, no brainer. You got it. You gotta have it. Once Upon a Time, obviously a very strong spell. Basically fixes opening hands, and late game it still gets you a creature or land, and it's quite good. Crows and Tusker. This is kind of just in here as a meme because it's a very strong limited card if you're playing like sealed, but no one plays this in Commander. However, in this deck, it fits the criteria of being a big spell that you can draw a card off of and still being a 6/5, and just cycling to draw a card, get a land, so it can really like kind of get you some value if much needed. Obviously a goofy card, could be definitely upgraded for something better. It's basically in here as something like that. I think I had like a Cultivate in the deck or something, or Kodama's Reach or one of those, and I decided Tusker would fit better in this deck because it's the same CMC to cycle it, and you can still get a big beast and whatever. That was my thought process, I believe. Arachnogenesis, it's basically a fog that makes you spiders for each attacker, which is great. You know, flooding our board and going wide is what we want to do, so it's the fog for this deck. Search of Greatness, really great card. Oh, this is the one I was talking about. This is the one that's more like a Sylvan Library. I said that with the Sylvan Anthem, but I was mistaken. Because it kind of like scries during your upkeep, or it just lets you put a big CMC thing into play, one bigger than your current highest. So this can kind of feel like 6 or 7 mana at times. It's just like a free big chunk of mana as you get to put a big creature in. Or it can just scry and help you get to what you need. It's been really a really good card, and for stability purposes of the deck, it makes the deck really stable. That's all I'm saying. And 2 CMC for the Devotion. All right, losing my track a little bit. Let's go to the next card. We got Kogla, the Titanape. A very fun card. It's basically removal. It's a 6 CMC ETB that fights something. And when it attacks, you can blow up enchantments and artifacts, which is a nice bonus, a nice little thing to have in the deck. And also, the last thing doesn't come in handy too often. There are a few humans in the deck, but it can basically bounce a human and get indestructible. So there's a potential of him surviving board wipes too, which is kind of cool. But really, he's in there for the fun, just for the memes and the removal. Um, Apex Devastator. This thing is just a ridiculous card. Yeah, it's 10 mana, but that's not much of a problem with this deck. And you get 4 cascades, and off in this deck you're going to have other triggers too. Like if you cast it with your boss Gilanra, you get to draw a card, and if you got other stuff out, you're going to have all kinds of things going crazy with these cascades. It's usually a game-winning turn if this gets cast, if not the following one being the game-winning turn. The Great Henge, no-brainer for this deck. It's always cheap to cast. It draws you a ton of cards. It gains you life. What more could you want? Only matched by the Soulstone. Joke. All right. Praetor's Council. I don't even think I've ever cast this, honestly. This card, in theory, sounds so good late game or even mid game, especially if you're getting fought back. I mean, obviously, with this deck, you want to just get a big board state and trample the table. But usually people do a lot of things, so this can be really good to just grab all that old stuff back and recharge. However, I'm not sure it belongs in this deck, to be honest. I've just, in all my time of playing this deck so far, which has, I think, been like a year or two, I've kind of lost track, I've never cast this once. So, but in theory, really good. Praetor's Council. You know, something I'd probably cut in the long run, it seems like, at this point. Questing Beast. Other than being just a great value card and being a very aggressive card, this shuts down fogs for the turn, and that's really big for mono green because that's one of your weaknesses. Is someone just prevents combat damage every turn, you lose. But Questing Beast has a passive on it that says just combat damage can be prevented. Combat damage dealt by your creature specifically can't be prevented. So that's kind of the main reason he's stuck around. Obviously, Vigilance, Death Touch, Haste, and all his other stuff is really good too. Kind of snipes Planeswalkers. All right, Gutter Grime. Oh, this is great. I love this card. It's so goofy, but it's also kind of a sleeper. It's 5 mana enchantment. It just says whenever a non-token creature you control dies, put a slime counter on this thing and make an ooze of that size. So after a board wipe, it just gets a counter and makes a slime, gets a counter, makes a slime. It just does that over and over a bunch of times. And you end up with a big board state still. And they kind of need a second board wipe is what this feels like. But also, it just creates value over the course of a game if you get it out early. It just kind of makes these various slimes, oozes. And it's a great theme card. So that's just another one of the ooze and go wide things here. I suppose, you know, if I were really going hardcore and wanted to make this as strong as possible, L's would be better, but oozes is funnier, all right? That's why it's oozes. Craterhoof Behemoth. I mean, do I need to talk about it? It's the best go wide strategy game ender. All right, Azuri's Predation. This is your board wipe. 8 CMC, and it's Azuri's Predation. That's what it do. It makes you a bunch of beasts and fights all your opponent's stuff. It's obviously very strong. Usually GG kind of card because it's a one-sided board wipe. March of the World Ooze. This card is incredibly strong, and it fits our 6 CMC category. And it makes everything of ours base power toughness 6/6 and oozes. So all our little 0/0s with counters, fractals, oozes, whatever we're making, they become absolutely massive. And this also just generates us elephants, which are actually oozes. Unless this thing gets destroyed, then they're back to elephants. So it kind of just ends up passively making you a bunch of 6/6s or 3/3s as well, just for your opponents doing stuff when it's not their turn. Very powerful card. So fun in this deck. It makes the deck very stable and strong. So you gotta love it. Sire of 7 Deaths. Oh, this guy's just a lot of fun. He just has so many keywords. One of the main reasons I actually decided to keep him in here is the fact that he has lifelink and reach, and vigilance too, and just great keywords to be swinging and defending. So it kind of makes your board state impenetrable if you have this. It's really hard for other players to attack you. And that's one of the things we want to do in this deck is not only be very aggressive, but be very defensive at the same time. So he's just like a perfect slot, and you can draw a card off of him with that 7 mana. Old Growth Troll. This card is great. If it dies, it turns into a thing that makes one of our 4s tap for 2. And it's a 4/4 trample for 3. It's great for the devotion. Yeah, it's just a perfect fit for this deck. Great for getting lots of mana and trampling over. Overwhelming Stampede. Another just game-ending sorcery It just makes our creatures absolutely massive, basically. Trample and plus X, where X is greatest power. So often a +7/+7, a +10/+10 to your whole board, and trample. It's a lot of damage. It's how we want to win. Something like that usually. All right, Karametra's Acolyte. It taps for our devotion. It's a human druid. In a way, I wish it was an elf, but also being a human, it can be bounced with Kogla, which is kind of funny. Way to save it is nice, actually, because it's a very valuable creature. This often ends up tapping for a lot, as you can see by the deck having a lot of green pips. So it's not uncommon for this to tap for 10 plus, which is one of your ways you're going to cast big spells. So this is a high priority, not priority, I would say high value target, I would say, in the deck. So something you want to make sure you keep alive the best you can, unless you have tons of other sources, and it doesn't matter that much. Stonecoil Serpent, this is just a really great card for the stability of the deck. Having protection from multicolored stops a lot of creatures in their tracks. And reach, obviously. And you can pump whatever you want into it, so it's often just a 6/6 that draws you a card with your commander. And Vigor's obviously very strong. 6/6 trample for 6, and he basically makes your board somewhat invulnerable. If damage would be dealt to a creature you control, prevent that damage and put counters on instead. And it's nutty. And if he goes to your yard, he shuffles in, which is not a big, doesn't really matter. I often forget about that, honestly, but it's kind of important to remember. But yeah, he just makes your board invulnerable to damage and just grow from damage, which is just kind of bonkers. He's a kill on sight, or it's kind of over card. So I guess to talk about that briefly, that's somewhat of a theme too. It's like rather than have removal and stuff to react to your opponent, it's just like threats. It's like deal with this or you're dead. So it puts them on the defensive very quickly, and I think that's a good strategy and a fun strategy. And also something I think not too many people think about when they're building their decks. I always just put in a bunch of removal. This has removal, but it's also like things that, yeah, it's removal, but it's also a big fight at the same time. So not a whole lot of like hard removal and reaction. You'll see a few here and there, but a lot of them are just like passive effects on something we already want. I like the Tarrasque's fight as well. Okay, well, let's continue. So that little side note. Titan of Industry, just a really strong 7/7 reach trample for 7 with nice ETB effects. He can blow up artifacts and enchantments, once again, a way to handle things, or he can just protect your board with shield counters, give you life. Very, very fun card. Vivian, Monster's Advocate. This card is just, I would say it's on the overpowered level in this deck. It is just very, very good. It's innocuous. Is that the right word? It's, you don't really see it coming. All right, 5 mana. She basically lets you play creatures off the top, which is really nice. Her +1 is to make a beast that has reach, vigilance, or trample. Reach is often the best. Just make a bunch of reach beasts so no one can get through. And it's really great for protecting her too, and keeping her loyalty up is just keep making those reach beasts. So she can protect herself really, really well from attackers. And her -2 basically lets you go find a creature if you cast a creature, kind of thing. So you activate it, you cast a big creature, you search for something, you put it onto the field. It's a great way to find your game enders, is to just kind of queue that up and plop 2 creatures in or more. Great way to find Crater Hoof and stuff off of Tarrasque. And things like that. So she's just a really big enabler and protector and a great advocate of stability of the deck. It's a great card. And yet another thing that your opponent's going to have to remove. The old Spike Weaver. I just had to put him in for classic's sake. But he's the original Fog Frog. Lets you remove counters to prevent damage. And he comes in with 3 of those counters. And with this deck, you're probably going to put more counters on him somehow. So he kind of works out really well in that way. And he's, yeah, really, I just put him in here for the classic value. But he is always really good at what he does. Emerald Medallion, sort of a no-brainer for this deck. You just play that as early as possible. Up the Beanstalk, this synergizes amazingly with this deck, which is, I'm sure, no surprise to anyone. The ETB draw a card is good enough, really, but then after that, it's just going to draw you a card every time you cast a big thing, which you're doing anyway, because that's part of the theme of the deck, so it just fits super, super well. Old Gnawbone, you just got to put it in there if you got it. It's very, very strong, and it gets you a nice flyer and potentially a lot of mana with your attackers, and it's just going to snowball. Ravenous Slime. This is a card that kind of snipes people as well. It starts out as just a little 1/1 for 3, but it is an ooze, so it fits our ooze theme. And if an opponent's creature dies, you exile it instead, and you put counters onto this thing equal to that creature's power. So this grows really quickly, and it shuts off aristocrat strategies. If this is out, aristocrats don't work because they get exiled rather than just dying. And yeah, kind of a sleeper card. I like it. Defiler of Vigor. This card's another just bonkers card. 5 mana, 6/6 trample. Then when you cast a green permanent, you put a 1/1 counter on each other creature you control. On each creature you control, not another. Okay, so you just get a bunch of counters all over your creatures, and they go crazy. And you can pay life for green. You can turn green into a Phyrexia for each permanent. So kind of like it's just everything you want. It makes things cheaper. It just buffs your board. It's just a very dreadful presence. Force of Vigor. Yeah, this is the one, this strict removal spell that I might actually end up cutting at some point. I just, the creatures do enough already. I got a lot of creatures that do this already, but Force of Vigor is just very good and often comes in clutch with reaction time when someone's trying to do something crazy on their turn. So I kind of left it in for that reason, although I don't love it, to be honest, although it's obviously a very strong card, and I can't go wrong with leaving it in. All right, well, let's continue. Enraz Forerunners, yet another just buff the board and go. The great thing about this one is you don't feel like you have to kill the entire table because it gives everything vigilance. So you still have blockers, even if you full send after an Enraz. So he's kind of really nice for sniping one player and still having great defenses kind of thing. The Scavenging Ooze shuts off yard strategies. It's an ooze, and just look at it. You got to have it. This card's great. Vastwood Surge. One of the best ramp spells we have these days that gets you 2 things directly into play. Well, at least for basics. So it just grabs you 2 forests. If you pay the kicker, it buffs your entire board with 2 more counters, which can also just kind of work as like a final buff and swing type win, especially if you got a large board state. The Biogenic Ooze. Yeah, this thing just kind of goes a little crazy if you pump a lot of mana into it. So it's a great mana dump, and it just gets you a really wide board state. And also it just kind of buffs your oozes. They get counters at the end of turn. It's kind of everything you want in an ooze. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't think this is the strongest card in the world, but it's fun. And if you can get it going, it's something they do have to deal with. And it's kind of one of those things. Incubation Druid, perfect for this deck since we're always putting 1/1 counters on things. We often don't have to pay the 5 adapt. And other than that, it's still a decent mana dork. So I really like that for this deck. We want to be able to tap for big mana, and that kind of does that. Uvenwald Mysteries. I'm not entirely convinced that this belongs in the deck, to be honest. The thought was just to have really good stability board state, so you can draw cards off of your things. Dying is never a bad thing, but it's not a draw, it's an investigate, so you got to pay into it. But hopefully that's not too big of a problem. We should be able to float a bunch of mana if we know it's coming or something, right? In theory. All right, and you also get a bunch of soldiers as you crack these clues, so that's kind of nice too. I'm not sure this fully belongs in the deck, but it fits some of our themes, and it keeps it a bit more stable. And just to get that out early could mean a lot of value for potentially the rest of the game. All right, the Bramble Familiar, I think he fits really well here. It's just a mana dork that's kind of, whatever. Play him turn 2 for sure if you can. But also he has a big 7 mana spell that lets you mill 7 and put a creature in, or an enchantment or land. So that's kind of nice too if you just draw this late and don't need a mana dork to just get something off the top. Basically, Beast Within, just premium removal here. Hits basically anything, so pesky lands, pesky enchantments, creature, whatever it be, Beast Within can handle it. That's why it's in here. It's great. Elvish Mystic, there's the 3rd mana dork for 1 CMC. Leyline of Abundance is obviously good here because a lot of our stuff taps for mana, so it's going to pay for itself there. And if we just want to buff our board later with all this excess mana, it's great for that too. So can't go wrong. The Annoyed Altasaur. I love this thing. It's just a common, and it's very, very strong. 6/5 reach, trample, cascade. It's kind of like a mini Apex Devastator, but it also has reach and trample. For some reason, Apex Devastator does not have trample, which has always boggled my mind. But this one at least has that. And reach is nice for just board stability and blocking. So kind of just a weird value piece that's very cheap to add to a deck. And it's a dinosaur, which doesn't matter in this deck, but it could. Primeval Bounty. This is one of those things you want to get out as early as possible. This thing is great. It gains you life. It buffs your board. It makes you a board. It kind of does everything you want to do. And the life gain when playing lands can actually come in a little clutch too. It's kind of just like a bonus because really we want the other two things, but also just gains you life. So a very good card for stability and 6 CMC, so great to cast. All right, Green Slime. This is basically artifact enchantment removal. Is how you use it, because you foretell it and play it for 1 green to snipe someone's triggered thing. It's great for hitting Smothering Tithe, Ristic Study. That's generally what I save it for, is one of those. Just green slime that sucker. It's fun. All right, we got the Oran Frostfang. He's going to draw you a lot of cards. He gives your board Death Touch basically when they're attacking, and with Trample Death Touch, it's just very, very deadly. So he's just another just really strong card. I did say green good stuff. This card's kind of goofy. I don't know if I even like it, but you can bear down and destroy artifacts and enchantments. A lot of removal for that in this deck, I'm noticing now, so we'll see. But it's also, on the other side, a 6 CMC thing. So you might have noticed there's also a bit of a theme of a cheap way to cast a card and an expensive way. That is a bit of a thing that we try to go for somewhat as well. And that just fit that criteria, as I believe why I included it. A few last mana dorks that are real powerful. Priest Titania generally taps for a lot of mana in this deck. Elvish Spirit Guide, just really great for pumping things out a turn earlier. And also, you can just play it if you have like a Priest Titania out and to make that generate more mana if you want, or trigger Great Hinge. Very versatile card, very strong in this deck, especially if you get it early and get mana dorks out excessively fast. Yeah, I like this modal. These are lands I think make the deck pretty stable because give you a way to buff something or just play it as a land if you're missing those. Timberwood Symbiosis, Turn Timber Symbiosis is a no-brainer. It's really strong. Yeah, you probably know what it does. The other side is just the land. And the kitty makes an appearance. All right, and we got Soul Ring. You got to have it in every deck, no-brainer. Balagid Recovery, very strong. Regrowth or land. Mind Stone. I like this in a lot of decks of this style because it makes for a great ramp in late game when you're just flooded with tons of mana. It makes for a great card draw. So I think Mind Stone fits really well in a deck like this. Clan Ambush is just a removal or a land. Just kind of a fight thing. And obviously we got to have Nykthos. We don't really search it up with this deck, but this deck doesn't really have any tutors either. That was another thing, was just like basically have no tutors. We don't want to ever be shuffling with this deck. So yeah, Nykthos is obviously really strong because of our devotion theme, but we don't have a way to search it up. That's, I guess, the point there, which is just the entire deck. A lot of forest, a lot of other value lands. We got this little Discover land, which could be fun. We got the Mosswort Bridge, which is obviously very strong here. You can often play something very quickly and very big with the Mosswort in this deck. I don't know if I love Pendlehaven, but you kind of got to put one in the deck. It's great. Beseju is a great card to add in place of a forest if you got it. And a lot of forests here. I tried to get a lot of different forests. I didn't want them to all be the same, so a lot of different arts. Castle Garenbrig, it kind of feels like 2 lands if you use it correctly. It's very good. Pay 4, tap it, makes 6 mana, but only for creatures. And it pretty much always comes in untapped because you should have a forest, but it could come untapped. So, but it's with the big spells deck like this, it's a no-brainer. Shifting Woodland, obviously just very strong for late game shenanigans, copying permanents in your graveyard, and doing things with it. A lot of potential, good card, and it usually comes in untapped. All right, what else we got here? Oran Reef the Vastwood. This is kind of part of that Ooze theme, potentially buffing your board for everything that came in, because you could have a lot of stuff come in and just a buff could be huge. So just to be able to tap this to do it fits pretty well with the deck. and just more forest. We want to hit those land drops every turn. I think there is a few land searches in here, but not many. Not many. We didn't have Cultivate. We didn't have Kodama's Reach. The only thing we really had was that buff one. Vastwood Surge. That's one of the few things that searches in the deck. I guess technically Crows and Tusker does a search too. He searches for a forest, so I guess we had a couple. But that is something I've kind of considered 100% cutting just for the playability of the deck. No searching. It already plays off the top quite a bit. All right, well that's my Gilanra and Slurrk deck. It's been a lot of fun playing this deck at a casual level, and just thought I'd show it off. I'm going to be doing some more deck techs. Pretty much going to try to go through the majority of my decks that I enjoy the most and get them up on the channel. So subscribe if you want to see more. And leave a comment. What am I missing? What should I change in this deck? What do you like about it? What do you dislike? Whatever. I'm going to read them all. All right. Thanks for watching. Peace out, guys.